any basement you're going to be working on, or the vast majority, are going to have bulkheads or soffits. Where I live, they're called bulkheads. Where you live, they may be called soffits. So if I get it confused or mixed up as we're going along here, I'm sorry. So let me start by telling a little story. Maybe about 7 years ago, I'm down in a basement and I'm framing it up as you usually do. And I was working on the bulkheads, and back in the day, I did what everybody did. I framed them up in 2x2 or 2x4. I built the whole ladder thing. I framed it up all sturdy. And my drywall guy, Bubsy, comes in to check on things before board. And he comes downstairs and he looks at me and he goes, "Bro, what are you doing?" I was like, I'm making bulkheads. And he looked at me with this sort of loving gaze where it was like, "You beautiful idiot, I'm about to make your life better." So he took my pencil and he said, "Let me show you something." He walked over and he started drawing what he wanted me to start doing and what he did for bulkheads. So we're going to call this video Better, Faster, Straighter. Let me make sure my spelling's right. Bulkheads and soffits. Let me move the microphone here so we can hear this better. Soffits. Okay, that's an F. So you're going to run into this, and this is not easy to do if you're doing it at a 2x2, because the 2x2 tends to split. It tends to warp. It doesn't stay straight all the time. It's not the best tool to be using for this. So we use 1 5/8 steel track. So we got 1 5/8 steel track, right? Which is it's just like a U. Let me move this so I can get it in front of me, which is sort of like this, right? It's just for steel stud, right? Whatever way you're going to put it. We'll orient it different in the drawing. And then we use what's called U-bar or hat track. So we'll call it U-bar, hat track. And it looks like this. Okay? It'll start to make sense as we go along. Now, the other things you're going to need are you're going to need fine thread drywall screws and self-tapping screws for metal studs, because you're going to be building this out of metal. Ideally, you want to have a laser level, which is, to me, one of the most indispensable tools you're going to have building your basement. You can use it for your walls. You can use it for bulkheads. You can use it for hanging doors. You can use it for all these things. And worst case scenario, you just go, you sell it on Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever you're using, and you can get some of that money back. It is a super useful tool. It's about $150 Canadian. I use the DeWalt one that you can get at Home Depot. I'll put a link in or a little description in of it. It is something you kind of can't live without. It's great. So you're going to have a laser level, and then if you don't have a drywall gun, which you probably don't if you're a DIYer, you're going to need an impact driver. Okay, with a Phillips bit or a drywall bit. Okay, so you're going to want those with you for all of this. This is going to be super, super simple, and once you see it, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is so much easier than the pain of holding 2x2s and 2x4s up over my head. It's going to make a lot of sense. Now, in the past, you would be building these at the framing stage. You're going to build your bulkheads at the drywall stage. It's going to be very, very simple. It's going to change your life in little ways that just make it easier. I might use a different color here. So let's build your wall system here, okay? So we've got our studs, okay? And then let's imagine this is your ceiling joist going this way. And let's say we're going to use, this is your drywall, okay? You want to board your ceiling first, right? Let's just erase that. But let's say you have ductwork, okay, which is normally what you're going to end up boxing around. We're going to do two types of boxes that you're going to make. We're going to do the ones that are on the side of the wall, and then we're going to do the main one that's kind of going down the trunk of your basement, like where your ductwork is and your load-bearing beam. First, we're going to do this one, okay? So let's take blue. We're going to make our bulkhead. So we're going to take our laser and we're going to establish where this is. So let's draw our laser over here. Okay, this is our laser. I'm going to go boom, 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 boom. That's our laser. We're going to install our steel track. So that's your steel track. You're going to screw through the steel track into the stud, through the drywall, into the stud. Now, you're going to come around and you're going to install another piece of steel track right here. Okay? Then you're going to hang your drywall. You're going to hang your drywall long, right? Your ceiling is probably not level, but your bulkhead needs to be. If you trace the line of your ceiling with your bulkhead, say you go, I'm going to make my bulkhead 12 inches down all the way along. Well, what if your ceiling drops? Now you're going to kind of have a crooked bulkhead, and that's really going to draw your eye. Whereas if the ceiling is a little dip, but your bulkhead is straight, that's kind of going to mask it a little bit. You're not going to be out that much, but you want to make sure you're trying to be as perfect as possible. Think about it. If you're going to put doors in and stuff like that, sometimes there's doors under bulkheads. You don't want it to be crooked because then your trim looks crooked and then your door looks crooked and all these things. So square, straight, or at least look square and straight are what you're trying to do. So now that I have my laser here, I've marked the bottom of this piece of steel track, and it's going to hit, the laser is going to hit the drywall where the bottom of my steel track is. Now I'm going to cut this off, right? So we cut that off, and I'm going to take another piece of steel track and screw it in through the drywall. Okay, I've screwed up through here into my floor joist, and now I've got my drywall on. Okay, now I have something to screw it to. Here's where I'm going to take the hat track, so the U-bar, the other piece of steel that we were talking about. We're going to slide it in here. Okay, it's going to go right in there. You're going to put the self-tapping screws up and through there. This is getting messy. And your drywall is now going to go on the bottom. You're going to screw into your U-bar. Okay, did we just make this easier for you? Super simple, right? You don't have to be lugging 2x4s and screwing it up over your head and deal with all that. Your steel track is nice and light. Your steel stud or your U-bar nice and light. You're going to need some tin snips, right? Not too easy. I would recommend getting some clamps because this part here, when you screw it on, so let's do this on another scale, okay? So when you have your piece of drywall here and you have your steel track there and you're screwing in this piece of steel track, okay? When you grab it, if you're grabbing here, this is going to be sharp against your fingers. So if you have a clamp, I would clamp it on and then screw it in because it'll make your life much easier. And then you have your other wall piece, your other piece of drywall over here. And this piece, you're screwed in, you're screwed in, you're screwed in. These aren't load-bearing pieces, right? It's going to be very easy for you to get it together. You're not hanging anything from it. This is going to make your life better, and you don't have to deal with framing it up beforehand. It's not something you commonly see, but it's a better way to do it and definitely more DIY friendly. Let's move on to the second type of bulkhead that you're going to build. Okay. Down the middle of your basement, you probably have a beam. We're going to pretend it's an I-beam, right? It's a steel beam and you got a post there and everything. And then your ductwork is typically on one or either side of it. And then your floor joist come across and they sit on your beam, right? So we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to do two sides. So let's get your laser beam. We're going to put your laser beam over here. What I don't want you to do, I do not want you to screw anything to your ductwork. Okay? Don't do that. That's bad news. Your ductwork is not structural. It's not meant to carry anything. It's meant to move air. So don't go screwing into it and putting holes. The holes aren't a big deal, but you just don't want things hanging from it and then it becomes a big problem, okay? So you're going to drywall your ceiling first. Now your ceiling's drywalled. So these are your floor joist for your main floor and your ceiling joist for your basement. Okay, ceiling joist. My spelling is awful. Okay. here's what we're going to do. We're going to take some of the same principles that we had on the other one. You're going to screw in your steel track, okay, here and here. Okay, now you're screwed in. Your laser is coming across here. First thing you want to do is you want to hang this back piece. Okay, so then your laser comes in, you're getting rid of this piece here because you're hitting the back. So now you've got it in. Now you're going to hang this piece. Okay, boom, 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 here, cut it off. Same thing as you did before. We're going to take our steel track, screw it in here, your steel track, screw it in here, your hat track goes across, and then you're going to screw your drywall into the bottom. Okay, you want to be about a 1/2 inch from anything that you're going to be touching. You don't want the back of your steel touching the steel. You don't want any of that. Your house moves a little bit, and now you're going to get squeaking and all that stuff. One of the challenges you may run into is this span. Once you kind of get over 2 feet, you need something to attach to. So you may have to put some type of legs in through here to attach to the back of this. You could strong back it, which means you're going to put a piece perpendicular all the way down, which is going to make it a little stronger, but it just hangs drywall. You just want to make sure it's strong enough and that it's going to stick together. You're not landing a helicopter on this. It's not structural. It's just for drywall. So now that we've got this figured out, right? I hope you understand that. There's another challenge you may run into. What if your ceiling joist run into on the other version that we had? So here's your wall. Let's get your wall up. Okay. Here's our 2x4. And what if your floor joist go this way? Okay. And here's your ductwork, right? Now you're going to hang your drywall. So let's get our board on. And then here's our drywall. So you want to run your drywall as far as it can go. And you want to put some type of backing in here, even if it scraps a 2x4. So like, let's say you got to scrap a 2x4 on the side, then you can screw through. You can put on your U-bar or your hat, not your U-bar, your steel track, and you can screw in. You need some backing in there to attach to. You don't want it just to hang, okay? And then again, here, you're into your wall. Amazing, now we're building it out. Again, there's a way to make some of your steel stud and steel track more rigid. I think we talked about this in the hacks for steel studs in your basement. But let's take sort of a top-down view. Let's go from, say, this is your ceiling drywall, and maybe you don't have any backing every foot, right? And this is your steel track. You want to take the screws and put them in on an angle in the corners. So one, that's going to make it more rigid, stronger on the sides, right? Because the head from the screws is going to make it rigid, but also you're cleating it into the drywall. If you go straight into the drywall, it just kind of pulls because the drywall, there's nothing in it unless you have backing in there. I'm not saying this is a great thing for long spans, but if you have a short span, it's fine. And especially if you're attaching a bulkhead into a bulkhead. What if you have two bulkheads that come together and one's higher and one's lower? They're going to connect. You can use this method to cleat it into the one bulkhead and it'll work. So the other thing we want to talk about that I kind of skipped over is we talked about the steel track, but at your ends, right? So where your bulkhead meets the wall, let's say this is your wall and this is your wall and this is going to be your bulkhead along here. You want to take some of that steel track. And so this is your drywall. Let's not confuse it. And then this is your 2x4. Man, I'm terrible at this. 2x4 drywall. Okay, let's kind of clean that up there. And then drywall and 2x4. And drywall. Okay, I'm terrible. You want some steel track to come down the side. Just so that when your ends of your bulkhead are, okay, where the ends of your bulkhead are, there's something there. You don't want the end to be flat because when you go taping it or hanging the board, maybe if you're down 16 inches here, that's a big span of nothing at a joint, at a corner. You want some backing in the corner. So make sure you put something in. Then you're going to have like your steel track up here and your steel track there. And then you're going to be just magical. This is going to be your bulkhead. It's going to look perfect. One of the benefits of steel, unlike traditional lumber, is it doesn't twist. It doesn't twist. So you're going to have longer runs. And why this is important is if you have a kind of a warp in your bulkhead, the corner bead is going to follow that warp. It's not going to work as well. So you're doing this for the taping phase as well. That's a terrible N. The taping phase. This will make your taping easier if you're going to do it, or whoever is doing the taping for you will be much happier with the result. And you'll be less worn out from doing it. Let me know if you have any questions. Please put it in the comments or shoot me an email at basementcoat@gmail.com. Happy to do it. This is something that I got a bunch of emails about doing a video on this. We're going to kind of call this the whiteboard edition of stuff. And I'll do then tutorials. Like when I get the chance to build bulkheads in real life, I'll make a video of how that's going to work. But as always, thanks for watching and good luck on your project.